Jack Miller walked through the thick jungle on the planet known as Kepler 186f. The sun was high in the sky, and the heat was heavy on his shoulders. He wore a green uniform that was made for combat, but today he was only scouting. He worked for the United Earth Coalition, and his job was to look for anything strange on this fringe planet. The air was wet and smelled like wet dirt and old leaves. Bugs flew around his head, but he did not swat them. He had to stay focused. His rifle was held tight in his hands, ready for anything. The jungle was very quiet, which made him feel uneasy. Usually, there were sounds of animals, but today the forest was silent. He stopped walking and looked at the computer on his wrist. It was making a soft beeping sound. The signal was not coming from any human source. It was a strange frequency that he had never heard before. Jack frowned and tapped the screen. The signal was getting stronger. It was coming from ahead, deep inside a sector filled with ancient ruins. These ruins were old stone structures covered in vines. Many soldiers avoided this place because the ground was unstable. Jack knew he should wait for backup, but the signal sounded like a distress call. It sounded like someone was hurting. He took a deep breath and started moving again. He pushed large fern leaves out of his way and stepped over broken stones. After 10 minutes of walking, he saw smoke rising above the trees. It was gray and thick. He moved slower now, crouching low to the ground. He did not know who made this smoke. It could be enemies. He crept forward until he saw a clearing. In the middle of the ruins, there was a crash site. A ship lay on its side. It was not a human ship. It was sleek and silver, with smooth lines that looked like water. There were scorch marks on the metal. Jack approached the vessel with caution. He checked his scanner for life signs. The scanner showed one life form inside. It was weak. Jack found an opening in the side of the ship. The metal was cut open like paper. He climbed inside the wreckage. The air inside was cold and smelled like ozone. He turned on the light on his helmet. The beam cut through the darkness. In the pilot's seat, slumped over the controls, was a female alien. She had violet skin that looked soft. There were intricate markings on her face that glowed faintly. She was not moving much. Jack moved closer to check her pulse. He touched her neck gently. Her skin was cool. He saw a wound on her side. She was bleeding, but the blood was not red. It was a bright blue fluid that stained her clothes. She was losing too much of it. He knew he had to make a choice. He pressed the button on his radio to call his commanding officer. Her name was Kate Brown. She was back at the main base, miles away. The radio crackled with static before her voice came through. Jack told her what he found. He told her about the ship and the alien. Kate sounded worried. She told Jack that engaging with unknown high-value targets could start a war. She said the protocol was to wait for a full team to arrive. She said it was too dangerous for one man. Jack looked at the alien girl. She was breathing very slowly. Her chest moved up and down with great effort. If he waited, she would die before the team arrived. Jack looked at the blue blood on his gloves. He thought about the rules, but he also thought about life. He could not let her die if he could help it. He made a decision. He told Kate he was going to stabilize her. Kate shouted over the radio for him to stop, but Jack turned the volume down. He opened his med kit. He took out a stimulant shot and a bandage that could seal wounds quickly. He worked fast. He cleaned the wound and applied the sealant. The blue blood stopped flowing. He injected the stimulant into her arm. He waited for a reaction. For a long minute, nothing happened. The silence in the ship was heavy. Then, the alien girl took a sharp breath. Her eyes opened slowly. They were a bright gold color. She looked at Jack with confusion and fear. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak. A small device on her collar blinked and translated her words into English. She whispered a single word. She said she was a princess. Jack froze. He realized this was not just any alien. She was a royal heir from a powerful species. If she died here, it could cause a massive conflict between her people and Earth. If she lived, she might be a key to peace. But right now, she was just a person who needed help. Jack holstered his rifle and looked her in the eyes. He told her she was safe. He made a silent vow to keep her safe no matter what happened next. He knew his life had just changed forever. The quiet jungle outside did not feel safe anymore. He knew others would come for her. But for now, he was the only thing standing between her and death. He checked his ammunition and prepared to wait. The peace of the jungle did not last long. Only a few hours had passed since Jack found the alien princess in the wreckage. The sky above the ruins began to change color. The bright blue turned into a dark gray. Thick clouds rolled in quickly, but they were not natural clouds. They were caused by the engines of large ships entering the atmosphere. Jack looked up and saw them. They were dropships, black and shaped like sharp knives. They moved silently through the air until they were directly overhead. Then, the noise hit them. It was a loud roar that shook the ground under their feet. Birds flew away in panic. The animals in the jungle went silent. Jack knew who this was. These were the hunters. Jack checked his radio. The signal was clear for now. He called Kate Brown again. She was already on her way. She arrived 10 minutes later with a small squad of soldiers. They came in a fast transport vehicle that hovered over the rough terrain. Kate jumped out before the vehicle even stopped moving. She looked at Jack and then at the alien girl sitting against the stone wall. Kate was angry, but she was also professional. She knew they were in trouble. She ordered her team to spread out. They needed to make a defensive line around the crash site. The ruins offered good cover. There were tall stone pillars and broken walls everywhere. The humans used these shadows to hide themselves. The black dropships landed in the clearing nearby. The ramps lowered with a hiss of steam. Soldiers marched out. They were tall and wore heavy armor that looked like black metal. Their helmets covered their faces, but red lights glowed where their eyes should be. These were the Krull. They were a warrior species known for conquering weak planets. They moved in perfect formation. They did not look afraid. They looked like they owned the place. Their leader stepped forward. He was bigger than the others. He held a weapon that hummed with energy. He shouted something in his own language. The translator on Lyra's collar picked up some of it. He was demanding they return the princess. He said she belonged to a warlord. Kate spoke into her radio. She told her team to hold their fire. She wanted to see what the Krull would do. The Krull soldiers began to scan the area. They used devices on their wrists that sent out green beams. They were looking for heat signatures. They expected the humans to run away or surrender immediately. They did not expect humans to fight. In their culture, if you were weaker, you submitted. But humans were different. Kate signaled to her team. They moved quietly through the ruins. They did not stay in one spot. They set up small traps near the pathways. They used unstable energy cells from the crash site. They placed them under loose rocks. The Krull commander grew impatient. He ordered his men to advance. They walked into the ruins, stepping heavily. They did not look at the ground. They only looked forward. This was their mistake. Jack watched from behind a broken wall. He saw the first Krull soldier step on a hidden pressure plate. There was a small explosion. It was not big enough to kill, but it was loud and it created smoke. The Krull soldier fell down. The others stopped. They were confused. Then, Kate gave the order. Humans threw smoke grenades. Thick white smoke filled the air. The Krull sensors could not see through the smoke. Their thermal imaging was blinded. The humans could see because they had old-fashioned optical sights. Jack stayed close to Lyra. She was shaking. She had never seen a battle before. In her empire, princesses were kept safe in palaces. They did not fight. Jack knelt beside her. He handed her a pulse rifle. It was a basic human weapon. It was light and easy to hold. Lyra looked at the gun with wide eyes. She did not know what to do. Jack showed her how to hold it. He told her to keep her hands steady. He told her to breathe slowly. Lyra asked him why he was doing this. She asked why humans would risk their lives for her. She said her people would leave the weak behind. She said it made the species stronger. Jack shook his head. He told her that humans believed protecting the vulnerable made everyone stronger. He said kindness was not weakness. Lyra listened to him. She looked at the smoke and the flashes of light. She saw the humans working together. They shared ammunition. They covered each other. No one was left alone. This was new to her. She gripped the rifle tighter. She decided she wanted to help. She was not just a prize to be won. She was a person. The Krull commander shouted in anger. His soldiers were firing blindly into the smoke. They were wasting energy. The humans waited. They held their fire until the enemy was close. Jack watched a Krull soldier emerge from the smoke. He was close to their position. Jack did not shoot. He waited for Kate's signal. The tension was high. The air smelled like burnt metal and ozone. Kate's voice came over the radio. She said they were ready. The Krull were frustrated. They started to charge forward. They wanted to end this quickly. They ran into the trap zone. Jack looked at Lyra. He nodded to her. She raised the rifle. She was ready to defend herself. The ground shook as more Krull ships arrived in the distance. This was only the beginning. The humans were outnumbered, but they had something the Krull did not. They had a reason to fight. They were not fighting for conquest. They were fighting to save a life. Jack checked his own weapon. He made sure the safety was off. The smoke began to clear slightly. The red eyes of the enemy were visible now. Jack took a deep breath. The battle for the princess was about to begin in earnest. The loud sound of heavy machines broke the rhythm of the gunfight. Large walkers emerged from the tree line. They were massive mechanical legs with guns mounted on top. They stepped over the ruins like they were nothing. The ground shook with every step they took. Kate Brown looked at her scanner and saw the heat signatures growing larger. She knew they could not fight these machines with small rifles. The defensive position was no longer safe. If they stayed, they would be crushed. Kate spoke into her radio and ordered a retreat. They had to move to the extraction point. It was far away, across a radioactive wasteland known as the Gray Zone. It was a dangerous place, but it was the only way to lose the enemy trackers. The humans moved out quickly. They left the ruins behind and entered the open wasteland. The ground here was covered in gray dust and sharp rocks. The air was cold and dry. There were no trees to hide behind. The sky was dark now, lit only by the glow of radioactive minerals in the soil. The group walked in a single file line. Jack Miller stayed close to the alien princess, Lyra. She was trying to keep up, but she was still weak from her crash injuries. Her leg was bleeding again through the bandage. Every step caused her pain. She did not complain, but Jack could see her limping. He watched her face tighten with each step. The Krull walkers were still behind them, searching the ruins, but their drones were scanning the wasteland. The humans had to keep moving. After an hour of walking, Lyra stumbled. She fell to her knees in the gray dust. She tried to stand up, but her leg gave out. She looked at Jack with shame in her gold eyes. She expected him to be angry. In her empire, weakness was not tolerated. Soldiers who could not march were left behind to die. This was the law of her people. It ensured that only the strong survived. She waited for Jack to leave her there. She waited for him to tell her to get up or be left for the enemy. But Jack did not do that. He stopped walking. He turned around and knelt beside her. He did not say a word. He simply put his arm under her shoulder and lifted her up. Lyra was confused. She asked him why he was slowing down the group. She said she was a burden. She said her people would have abandoned her already. Jack shook his head. He told her that humans did not work that way. He said they did not leave people behind. He adjusted his grip and lifted her off the ground. He carried her in his arms. His muscles strained under the weight, but he did not stop. The other soldiers saw this. They did not complain about the delay. Instead, one of the soldiers named Dan slowed down to cover the rear. Another soldier named Mike checked the path ahead for traps. They worked together to protect the weak member of their group. Lyra watched them from Jack's arms. She had never seen anything like this. They walked for another hour before Kate called for a short rest. They found shelter behind a large rock formation. The wind was howling outside. The group sat down in a circle. It was time to eat. They had limited rations. Each soldier took out a small packet of food. It was a thick paste that gave energy. Jack opened his packet and gave half of it to Lyra. She looked at the food and then at Jack. She saw that the other soldiers were doing the same. They were sharing their food with the wounded and the tired. One soldier gave his extra water to another who had lost his pack. Lyra could not understand this logic. She asked Jack why they wasted resources on the injured. She said it made no sense to feed someone who might not survive the night. Jack looked at her seriously. He wiped the dust from his face. He explained that humans believe protecting the vulnerable makes the whole species stronger. He said that strength was not just about muscles or guns. He said true strength was about caring for each other. He told her that when you save a life, you gain a friend. You gain loyalty. You gain a future. Lyra listened to every word. She thought about her home world. She thought about the warlord who wanted to marry her. He only cared about power. He only cared about conquest. He would have left her in the jungle to die. But these humans, who had no reason to help her, were risking everything. They were starving themselves to feed her. They were tiring themselves to carry her. This concept shocked Lyra. It changed how she saw the universe. She realized her people valued power over people. But humans valued people over power. This philosophical shift began to form a bond between the princess and the scout squad. She looked at Jack with new respect. She was not just a prize to them. She was a person. She took the food from Jack and ate it. It tasted salty and plain, but it was the best meal she had ever had. She felt warmth spread through her body. It was not just from the food. It was from the kindness. Kate checked her watch and stood up. She said they had to move again. The crawl were getting closer. Jack stood up and lifted Lyra again. She did not protest this time. She held onto his shoulder and looked at the dark horizon. They had a long way to go, but she was not afraid anymore. She knew these humans would not let her fall. The wind howled across the top of the high ridge. It was a sharp and cold sound that cut through the air. The ground here was made of loose gray rock and steep cliffs. Jack helped Lyra walk up the last slope. Her leg was still hurt, but she wanted to walk on her own. She wanted to be strong like the humans she had met. Kate Brown looked up at the sky. It was dark and full of swirling sand. The extraction ship was supposed to meet them at this location. But the storm was too strong. The pilot radioed Kate through the static. He said he could not land yet. He needed to wait for the wind to calm down. Kate lowered her radio. She looked at her team. They were very tired. Their ammunition was low. They had been walking and fighting all day and night. Below the ridge, lights appeared in the dust. They were small red lights at first. Then they became brighter. They moved in the dark like glowing eyes. The crawl had found them. The enemy ships hovered at the bottom of the cliff. Soldiers began to climb up the rocky slope. They moved slowly because of the strong wind. But there were many of them. Kate counted the lights with her binoculars. There were too many to fight in a normal way. The humans were surrounded on three sides. The only way out was the sky, but the storm blocked the sky. Jack walked to the edge of the ridge. He looked down at the climbing enemies. He checked his heavy pack. He had seismic charges inside. They were small devices used for mining. They could shake the ground violently. Jack turned to Kate. He had an idea. It was a very dangerous idea. He told her that if they placed the charges along the edge of the ridge, they could collapse the slope. The rock would fall down. It would bury the crawl soldiers below. It would create a wall of dust and stone. But it would also trap the humans on the ridge for a while. They would have no way down if the ship did not come. Kate looked at the approaching lights. She looked at her tired soldiers. She knew they could not win a straight fight. She nodded at Jack. She told him to do it. Jack moved quickly. He placed the charges in the cracks of the rock. He wired them together with careful hands. Lyra watched him work. She held her rifle tight. Her hands were shaking, but she did not drop the weapon. The crawl soldiers were getting closer. They were only 50 meters away. Jack could see their black armor clearly now. He could see the red lights on their helmets. Kate ordered everyone to hold their fire. She wanted to save ammunition. She wanted the enemy to get close. The humans lay flat on the ground. They hid behind small rocks. The wind blew sand into their faces. They did not move. The Krull thought the humans were afraid. They thought the humans were out of ammo. The enemy commander shouted orders. The Krull soldiers started to run. They charged up the final slope. They wanted to capture the princess alive. They wanted to take her back to the warlord. Jack watched them come. His finger hovered over the detonator. He waited. He needed them to be in the kill zone. Lyra looked at Jack. She was scared, but she trusted him. She remembered what he said about protecting each other. She raised her rifle. She aimed at the leading soldier. Jack waited until the enemy was 30 meters away. Then he pressed the button. The ground shook violently. A loud boom echoed across the wasteland. The edge of the ridge broke apart. Huge rocks fell down the slope. The Krull soldiers were swept away by the avalanche of stone. Dust filled the air. It was thick and gray. The enemy could not see anything. The path up the ridge was gone. The humans coughed in the dust. They covered their faces with their arms. They waited for the ground to stop moving. After a minute, the shaking stopped. The dust began to settle. Below them, there was only a pile of rubble. The Krull advance was stopped. But the storm was still strong. Jack looked at the sky. He saw a light breaking through the clouds. It was a bright white light. It was the transport ship. It was fighting the wind to reach them. The ship hovered above the ridge. The engines roared loudly. The side ramp opened. Kate shouted for everyone to move. They ran toward the ship. The wind pushed against them. Jack carried Lyra again. He ran faster than before. They reached the ramp. The soldiers jumped inside. Jack pushed Lyra into the cabin. He jumped in after her. The ramp closed quickly. The ship lifted up. They felt the gravity pull them down as the ship accelerated. They were safe. The Krull soldiers below shouted in anger, but their voices were lost in the wind. Lyra sat on the floor of the ship. She looked at Jack. She looked at Kate. They were alive. They had won against the odds. The ship flew into the clouds, leaving the wasteland behind. Jack took off his helmet. He was sweating and tired. But he smiled. They had made it. The hard part was over. Now they had to go to her home world. But for now, they were safe in the sky. The humans had proven they could protect what mattered. The human ship landed smoothly on the surface of Lyra's home planet. The capital city was vast and shining. Tall towers made of silver metal reached high into the sky. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings in organized lines. It was a very advanced place, much more technology than Earth had. Jack Miller and Kate Brown stepped out of the ship with Lyra. They wore their clean uniforms. They felt small compared to the huge structures around them. Many aliens watched them from the balconies. They whispered among themselves. They had never seen humans before. To them, humans were just a primitive species from the fringe worlds. They did not expect humans to be here. Lyra walked between Jack and Kate. She walked with her head high. She was no longer the scared girl from the crash site. She was a princess ready to lead. They walked into the great hall. It was a massive room with a high ceiling. The floor was made of polished black stone. At the far end, there was a raised platform where the Galactic Council sat. These were the leaders of many different species. They decided the laws of the sector. But there was also someone else there. The Krull warlord, General Vex, stood on the side. He wore heavy black armor. He looked angry. He wanted Lyra back so he could marry her and take her throne. He saw the humans and laughed. He thought they were pets. He told the council that humans were weak. He said they should be punished for interfering. He demanded Lyra be handed over immediately. The council members looked unsure. They did not want to anger the Krull. The Krull had a large army. Lyra stepped forward. She did not look at Vex. She looked at the council. She began to speak. Her voice was clear and strong. She told them about the crash. She told them about the jungle and the wasteland. She told them how the Crawl hunted her like an animal. Then she pointed to Jack and Kate. She told the council what the humans did. She said they shared their food when they were hungry. She said they carried the wounded when they were tired. She said they fought against a huge army to save one life. She told them that humans valued people over power. This was a new idea for many in the room. In most empires, the strong ruled the weak. But Lyra said that true strength was protecting the weak. She showed them the bandage on her leg. She showed them the human medkit that saved her. She said these humans had no reason to help her. They did it because it was right. The council members listened quietly. They looked at Jack and Kate. They saw the scars on their uniforms. They saw the calm look in their eyes. They did not look like conquerors. They looked like guardians. General Vex shouted that this was nonsense. He said honor was about victory. He reached for his weapon to prove his point. But the guards of the council stopped him. They had heard enough. The head of the council, an old alien with blue skin, stood up. He said that the Crawl had broken many laws. They had attacked a royal heir. They had threatened a neutral species. He said the humans had shown more honor in 1 week than the Crawl had in a century. The council voted immediately. They sanctioned the Crawl Empire. Their trade routes were closed. Their ships were banned from many sectors. General Vex was forced to leave the hall in shame. His power was broken. Then the council turned to the humans. The head speaker said that Earth was no longer a primitive world. He said humanity was now a protected ally. He offered them technology and trade agreements. He said the galaxy needed more species like them. Jack and Kate looked at each other. They did not expect this. They just wanted to do the right thing. Lyra smiled at them. She thanked them for changing her mind. She said she would rule her people differently now. She would rule with kindness like the humans. She promised that her empire would stand with Earth against any threat. The meeting ended. The humans walked back to their ship. The aliens in the city bowed as they passed. They were no longer seen as prey. They were seen as heroes. Jack and Kate boarded the ship. The engines hummed to life. They lifted off from the silver planet. As they flew into space, Jack looked out the window. He saw the stars shining in the dark. He thought about the journey. It started with a distress signal in the jungle. It ended with a new future for all of humanity. Kate sat next to him. She said they did good work. Jack nodded. He knew the real victory was not the alliance or the technology. The real victory was respect. Humanity had proven that kindness could be the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The ship jumped into faster than light speed. They were going home. Earth was safe now. The galaxy knew their name.